1992, the Bosnian Serbs declared half of the country to be Republika Srpska. And they had begun to undertake the project of removing non-Serbs from that self-declared territory, where they're accused and found guilty of attempting to permanently remove all non-Serbs from Bosnian Serb-claimed territory. And that Bosnian Serb-claimed territory was Republika Srpska. So he had this eliminationist or genocidal project.
So the United Nations named a number of enclaves as safe zones. Srebrenica was one of them. And these were areas that were essentially surrounded by Serbian forces, but had UN personnel, UN military, there to protect the Bosnian Muslims. But as you watched the Serbs move through the lines as they were led by a man named General Ratko Mladic, they were moving towards Srebrenica. Within a number of days, Srebrenica fell. The UN did nothing to protect the Bosnian Muslims that were there. Women, children, young boys, and very elderly men were put on buses and sent across the border to the UN base in Tuzla. And a number of men, thousands of men, trying to get away from Serbian forces, marched into the woods to try to reach the same border.
At that time, my dad was with his first cousin, and they were walking every day through the woods of Srebrenica up to Udrich to get to Tuzla.
Now we are wondering where they are, because it's been 11 or 12 days now since they left. They should have gotten to Tuzla in 2-3 days, 4 max. Somebody tells my mom, my uncle that left me with my dad, he's wounded, but my dad is not there. So we start searching.
They were being chased by Bosnian Serb forces. Many of them were executed. Many of them were rounded up, put into buses and trucks, and then brought to other places and executed. And in total, maybe 8,000 men and boys were killed.
We did end up finding my dad in 2005. They found his remains, and that's when we had the funeral for him.
At one point, him and his cousin, which I just found out 2 years ago when we went to bury him, they just found his corpses 2 years ago in a mass grave.
My another uncle and my grandfather and his son, cousin, that was wounded, they all died. They never made it.
Evo nas 11. jula 1995. godine u srpskoj Srebrenici. Uoči još jednog velikog praznika srpskoga poklanjamo srpskom narodu
This is part of the general problem of the prohibition of memorialization, where in Republika Srpska, I was discovering that the leadership denies the genocide, and they prohibit the survivors from establishing memorials at documented atrocity sites. So I saw these as genocide denial and denial of the human right to the truth, and also the right to memorialization was being prohibited. And there was also the problem of, along with denial, many of the victims had been buried in mass graves. And the local population knew where the mass graves were, but they wouldn't say where they were. So it was taking time to locate them and then to identify the human remains. Because in the process of trying to hide the mass graves, they would try to move the remains to other locations.
Skini ovu tablu. Ulica Selmanagić, Reuf Crni. Skinite to. Hajde. Penji se bre čoveče, nemoj da ti govorim 10 puta I po nešto. Nakon Srebrenica ovdje.
It's been over 20 years, and our genocide still isn't like recognized in certain spots. It's not recognized in parts of our country as well. In Bosnia, some areas they don't think it ever happened. That we're and genocide denial is rampant in that area.
I think that things have been deteriorating in the sense that the international community has failed to hold those who deny the genocide or glorify convicted war criminals accountable. In genocide studies, we say that genocide denial, for example, and the glorification of war criminals is an indication that the atrocities would be repeated.
I think that the photograph in Bielina is very important, very powerful, and does represent the brutality of the war. But there's another photograph which is not really a photograph, it's a photograph of a photograph. It's a family photograph of a family called the Fako family, Bosnian Muslim family that lived in a suburb called Alija. Once the war was over, the Fako family went back to their home. The home was empty of all furniture. The windows were gone. The electricity was gone. The plumbing was gone. It was just a shell. There had been a Serbian family living in there. They took everything. Except for one thing. A family photograph lying in a frame on the floor of the living room floor. And what was different now about that photograph was that their faces had been etched out as if somebody took a razor blade and meticulously etched out each one of their faces, and with what appeared to be like a screwdriver, drew a line through each one, the parents and the two children. That act of what happened represented what had happened during the entire breakup of Yugoslavia, as well as many other wars. It became, for me, a universal symbol of the idea of eliminating the identity of the other. And that's the goal, is you wipe out the other before they come and wipe you out.
There is this opinion that Serbians are the ones that attacked everyone and did the genocides and did everything, and I think it's probably not fully correct.
They are denying it too. They have their say in it too. There's no other way around it for me.
People are forgetting about these things, hopefully, and we don't like to keep bringing them up.
If you don't talk about it, it's bound to happen again, definitely.
And I think they are now kind of settling down after so many decades.
Right now, I feel that the war could start anytime again. Sometimes I even feel it's worse than it was before the war and after the war, because everybody hates everybody still.
It's really easy to make people hate each other, but it's not the real hate, I think. It's just somehow induced hate, unfortunately.
People are raising their kids on hate and I'm not sure what they're telling their kids, but you could see the young kids that were not even born during the war. They have so much hate.
My name is Edna Alic, and I'm a resident of Hartford. I'm testifying in support of the Bosnian Genocide Remembrance Day. This day would designate July 11th as an official commemorative day for recognizing those lives lost in Srebrenica genocide during the Bosnian War.
Being able to actively tell state representatives, like, we need our state to acknowledge that there was a genocide and to commemorate July 11th as Bosnian Genocide Remembrance Day, so that we show not only our neighbors and locals what happened to us and kind of have them understand why it is so important that this is a living memory through us, our living identity essentially as well, is to show the world that you can't deny genocide, and that genocide denial only causes more problems in the end.
I applaud everybody who was involved in it, and it's a great thing for Bosnian community. It's a great thing for everybody. I mean, no genocide should be unnoticed, unrecognized. Doesn't matter who, doesn't matter where. We should talk about it. We should be talked about in hopes that it never happens again.
Jednog dana pitala ga Sultanova kćerka mila, što za ljubav